They are heroes, and they're going to space.
In 1963, the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union worsens, and nuclear war becomes inevitable. Recognizing that humanity could be extinct, President John Kennedy authorizes the creation of a covert scheme to assure humanity's existence. A group of scientists design the starship Ascension and recruit 600 volunteers to colonize Proxima Centauri. However, the journey will take hundreds of years, so generations will succeed one another. 2 generations later, the spacecraft is primarily occupied by the descendants of the first astronauts, and the setting is reminiscent of the 1960s. A spectacular party is held on the ship to commemorate the 51st anniversary of its launch. Looking at the population, the objectives seem to have been successful. However, the first impression is deceiving, as socioeconomic disparity also prevails here. Wealthy and well-off families acquire good professions and reside on the top decks, whilst the impoverished have little comfort. Lorelei, a young woman, picks up a parcel from the butcher and goes swimming at the artificial beach. However, long afterward, a girl named Krista discovers her lifeless body and warns the crew with a loud scream. Despite the passing of time, the spaceship's chief engineer, who remained on Earth, is still alive. But his son Harris has taken his place, and he is doing everything he can to maintain the Ascension project under strict control and watch all news. After learning of Lai's murder, Harris's assistant suggests telling the project director, Catherine Warren. However, Harris is concerned that this may damage the project and ruin his father's legacy. Meanwhile, Dr. Juliet Bryce examines the deceased and discovers unusual markings. The ship's captain, William, delegated responsibility for investigating this case to the project executive director, Aaron Galt. He quickly notices one oddity. There is no vision of Lorelei entering the shore. Later, Galt discovers that Lorelei was meeting a man called James Toback, who worked in water purification. He sets out to find him, but without success. Lorelei had been having sex a few hours before her death, according to forensic evidence. A bullet was removed from her palate. This worries Galt because the ship is officially unarmed. He instantly notifies the captain of the news. Meanwhile, Krista has to be hospitalized since she is shocked by the occurrence and believes someone is following her. But even as she recovers, the girl argues that there is no life in space and that they must return to Earth. She is also convinced that Lorelei died because she discovered something forbidden. Soon, Galt apprehends James Toback. The guy says that he saw Lorelei on the day she died. However, she departed quickly following a disagreement, and he was not near her that day. Galt and Toback head to the shore and begin hunting for clues. Suddenly, they discover a hidden corridor that Lorelei appears to have used, explaining her absence from surveillance film. Galt and Officer Duke investigate the uncovered entrance and discover the location of the girl's death, as well as a book with maps of the water filtration system and designs for the navigation computer, which recently malfunctioned. It becomes evident that this is a sabotage attempt to drive the ship back to Earth. Duke and his men descend to the lower decks, where Stokes, the butcher, starts a brawl. But then an alert sounds, warning of an impending powerful radiation storm. The captain orders everyone to take shelter in their capsules. But when he discovers that the protective shields are jammed, he sends Galt and an electrician to repair them. Because of their efforts, the door eventually closes. The electrician then admits that he witnessed Stokes hand Lorelei a gun before her death. At the same time, Dr. Juliet puts Krista to bed and gives her a seahorse-shaped necklace, stating it will keep her safe. However, as the spaceship enters the radiation zone and everyone shuts themselves in their capsules, Krista notices a strange figure in a suit enter her room. After the ship safely passes through the radiation storm and everyone is free to go, Galt and Duke return to the lowest deck, discover Stokes with a gun, and arrest him. The man is interrogated, but he maintains that he was framed since he is from the bottom deck, and it is simple to make him the guilty. Meanwhile, the door to Stokes' cell opens automatically. He leaves and obtains a hidden rifle from his cabin. Following the funeral, Galt chats with the captain. William acknowledges he was close to Lai, but did not kill her. Stokes then appears carrying a random girl captive. He demands a fair trial. Galt leaps at Stokes, releasing the girl. The captain immediately guides her to safety as Stokes and Galt continue to fight. Stokes is eventually thrown into space, but instead of dying instantly, he lands on an inflated mattress and is detained by a group of people. It becomes evident that the entire experiment is a simulation, a test of the viability of generations of humans in space. However, the crew believes they were sent on a vital mission and have been traveling in space for 51 years. Director Warren eventually learns about the previous incidents. Enraged, she marches into the Mission Control Center and orders Harris not to hide anything. Harris claims Stokes is the murderer, but the director is skeptical, so she assigns a consultant called Samantha Kruger to oversee the project. At the same moment, an unknown individual places a bomb in the ship's cobalt generator, which explodes after a while. Harris and Kruger run into the facility that houses the spaceship. Fortunately, there have been no reports of casualties, and the injured have been sent to the medical center. Captain William inspects the explosion scene and finds graffiti on the wall, confirming that it was an intentional act. However, fearing allegations of incompetence, he conceals the underlying cause. Outside, Kruger requests access to the ship's surveillance footage. Galt rushes to the lower decks to speak with Dwight, the person in charge of the generators, but he panics and attacks the director. Galt regains consciousness and begins his inquiry, discovering that the explosion that killed his parents 20 years earlier was similar to the most recent one. He hypothesizes that Dwight was likely engaged in Lorelei's murder because Stokes was unable to use a gun and hence could not have killed the girl. Harris and his assistant discover that the other side of the deck is no longer airtight, allowing the team inside to hear sounds from the outside. This increases the risk of exposure. Galt discovers Dwight and a fight ensues, during which Dwight manages to escape and activate a bomb timer. Harris is alarmed and orders everyone to evacuate the area immediately. Fortunately, Galt defuses the device, but Dwight dies. Kruger blames Harris for this, but maintains that the project's objective is to assess human capabilities. However, Harris later delivers Dr. Juliet's necklace to his wife, implying that he was the one who broke into Krista's room and took it. At the same time, Kruger does her own research and discovers that numerous scientists connected in the Ascension project were killed or went missing in the 1960s. Meanwhile, on the ship, everyone prepares for the next round of vaccines, but Krista resists the shot, believing that they intend to murder her. The librarian volunteers to receive the shot instead, but after receiving the drug, she passes out. Kruger demands an explanation, but Harris claims that these are normal immunizations and expresses worry for the girl who did not receive the shot. He orders that the drug be mixed with milk, but Krista discovers his scheme and pours it out. Kruger encounters Ava, the creator of a website that tracks the fortunes of 1960s scientists. Ava alleges that the government exploited the project as an excuse to kidnap youngsters for participation. Later, an unknown man pursues Krista and attempts to forcefully vaccinate her, but he injures himself and stains the girl's dress with his blood, allowing her to flee. Galt takes her to Dr. Juliet and persuades her to take the shot. While preparing, Krista tells Dr. Robert Bryce about recent visions. These include a twin tower collapse, a desert war, and ocean catastrophes. She also claims to have seen Dr. Bryce in the maintenance tunnel where Lorelei died. The doctor becomes agitated, gags her, and gives her the shot. Harris and his assistant, who witness this, are surprised that Krista detailed events that occurred on Earth. Dr. Bryce discovers a blood sample match between Krista's garment and his wife's pupil, Mesmer. The youngster is, however, discovered dead in his cabin. Kruger determines that Harris has an accomplice aboard the ship who is generating disruptions and radiation storms. The lottery day approaches, allowing the winning couple to have a kid due to tight population limits. A new person can only appear after someone dies, and 3 people have already perished. Soon the names will be announced. Officer Duke and his wife were among the winners. Krista observes a woman outside her cottage and follows her, only to learn she is the ghost of Lorelei. At that point, someone starts playing a video of her encounter with Captain William. Everyone in the room laughs, and Krista begins screaming violently. Harris sees that the girl began reacting even before the film started, as if she could predict the future. He is astounded. His father foresaw this event 3 generations ago, referring to it as morphic resonance. Kruger takes the keys to Stokes' cell and later presents a report strongly condemning Harris, forcing Director Warren to join the project. Kruger sneaks into Stokes' cell, attacks her, and holds her prisoner. There he discovers the truth about the Ascension project. This shocks Stokes, resulting in a mental breakdown. However, Kruger persuades him that they must flee before being discovered and killed. She agrees to help him because the entire project is unethical. As they walk outside, Stokes sobs, but Kruger encourages him to gather himself. A guard approaches them, and they work together to defeat him. Kruger sustains an injury throughout the process. Stokes visits the local store to purchase medical supplies. They then head to a motel together. Warren and Harris discover of the escape and contact security at the business TC, which turns out to have funded the research. The management is dissatisfied with the director's performance and accuses Harris of concealing information. Harris panics and begs Warren for another chance, but in vain. On the ship, Duke learns that Galt has begun an investigation into his wife, suspecting her of killing Lorelei. He loses control and confronts Galt. At the same time, Krista has a different vision. She flees to the shore because she expects Duke and Galt to fight violently. She employs telekinesis unintentionally due to her anxiety. However, she loses control of her power and turns off the entire ship's energy. Warren blames Harris for the tragedy and instructs her henchmen to dispose of him. Harris is terrified as he discusses morphic resonance. Warren had been waiting for this result for a long time. They rush to the control center and discover that all of the ship's systems have shut down due to a power outage, but the artificial stars continue to shine. Harris's father inserted the starlights into the ship's nuclear reactor to assure the illusion's permanence. Harris advocates utilizing the nuclear reactor to restore system operation. Meanwhile, Toback receives a poor TV signal and notifies Dr. Bryce. However, the latter sends the guy away on a bogus pretense before turning off the TV. It becomes evident that he is Harris's collaborator. Kruger meets with Ava and describes everything to her. She intends to flee abroad and seek asylum before revealing the project's deception. Ava attempts to persuade her, and Kruger discovers that the journalist also works for the TC firm. Eva confesses all and shoots Kruger. Stokes escapes. The ship's oxygen supply begins to run out. Captain William and Galt travel to the lowest decks to activate the carbon dioxide scrubbers and declare a radiation storm so that the others can preserve oxygen. Harris thinks that the prospects of restoring the spacecraft to working order are slim, so Warren decides to save Krista before she suffocates. William and Galt believe the scrubbers are beyond repair and opt to clean the air manually. Krista senses someone approaching to kidnap her. Dr. Bryce verifies this, and when Krista accuses him of murdering Lorelei, he admits. The woman learned about the bogus mission, and he couldn't stand the publicity. Galt and William effectively disperse lithium dioxide throughout the ship with enormous fans, restoring oxygen levels. At this point, Warren's envoy arrives, and Dr. Bryce attempts to stop him, but the monster easily sweeps him aside and snatches Krista. Galt encounters Lorelei's ghost, which leads him to Krista. It turns out he's also developed resonance. Galt attacks the thug. Krista utilizes her ability once more, causing the opponents to vanish into thin air. Warren panics and attempts to contact the envoy by radio. She goes closer to the ship, and Harris takes advantage of the opportunity to shove her down and kill her. Galt finds himself on a strange planet. The concept is generally appealing, especially to aficionados of detective fiction. One can't help but wonder, what if Earth is the same type of spaceship with all of its inhabitants participating in an experiment?